Oh my goodness. Seriously, I have to just do it. It's like I can tell myself I don't have to think about things that don't matter.
I was designed to do those things. How the hell does this guy know this about me?
It's impossible to not see.
When Dan read for my sister, she was like, he's psychic. She's like, how does he know that?
Yes.
She's like, it's human design, guys. Like, it's just a testimony of how legit it is.
Seriously, Danny was like FBI or CIA. He's like, how the hell does this guy know this about me?
Having my chart read, there were just thing after thing after thing that I was just like, wow, that's me.
This man is reading me and I've never met him before.
I was in the midst of one of the biggest emotional waves I've ever been in my life, and he saved my life.
It seems like everybody has the same reaction. It's that aha moment, and they want to find out more. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Human Design Advantage podcast. Today is September 18th. My name is Jen, and decoding the matrix for us is Danny Guru.
Jennifer, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Dan?
I'm hanging right in there. It's a beautiful Sunday out here in Massachusetts.
Yes, it's muggy here in Houston. So, and we have Tressa joining us today. Welcome, Tressa.
I can hardly hear you, Tress.
I can hardly hear you too.
I was talking real quiet.
Okay, perfect.
That was just quiet. I just got out of an epic hypnotherapy session, and sometimes I still have my hypnosis voice in.
That makes sense.
Yes.
I recognize that voice.
It's all in the voice.
Yes. Well, I love today's topic. We're on episode 20, and it's about the awakening of our emotional solar plexus.
Yep. What it's like to have it defined versus what it's like to have it open and undefined.
And I'm the only one here that has the defined.
Yeah, you're going to be our go-to, Jen.
Okay. I had to think. Yes, I'm the only one, I think, so far.
And Savannah, when she gets her kids wrangled in place, she'll undoubtedly be joining us.
Yes, Savannah will be joining us.
So this is amazing. I know we got a couple of graphics to you, Jen. I like the graphic that is the opening graphic. It just sort of asks the question and it singles out that emotional solar plex center all by itself, sitting there alone all the way to the right. And so I think, this is the one. I think we did a graphic on this. And you can actually see the names of all the gates on the solar plex center. But I was talking about the graphic for the show.
This.
That and
I just changed the color, but it's the same graphic that I used on the cover.
And Danny, I would love for you, just because I have all of that logical circuitry within me, I would love for you to start at the very beginning for those listening in who maybe aren't clear on what definition even is. I mean, can you explain to us, what does it mean to have a defined solar plexus?
Well, it first and foremost means that there's a channel, there's a connection between it and another center. It means that there's a whole channel between the solar plex center and the sacral or the throat or the root, any one of those three centers, the throat, the sacral, which is to the left, the root right below it, and of course the ego center. So there's four centers. If there's a channel, like that channel 40 down to 37, if the whole thing is activated, colored in your body graph, you have emotional definition. Same thing with any of the other, a total of 7 channels all told together that will define the solar plex center. And then bam, that's your inner authority. You are now making decisions based on an emotional wave that goes up and down. And if you're not aware of that, you're trying to make fast decisions when in reality, it requires time and a slower decision-making process. So if you have it open, you're intensely aware that there's an emotional wave. And that's the topic of today's conversation, is the difference between the two. The people who have it defined are aware and sometimes avoidant of feeling bad because they hate it. And if you have it open, I mean, it seems like we hate it. And if you have it open, then you're intimately aware that there are times that you are so charged up by this emotional wave that you're charged up into either being way high up on the wave and suddenly you're making poor decisions like, I love you, let's get married right now, when that decision should take a little more time, right? I love you, let's have a baby. How about that one, right? And think of all the things. I love this place, let's buy a new car. All these things happen when you're way up on the wave. And then we who are open, we run away and avoid this wave and feel its conflictual nature as a conflict. We feel it as a conflict when it's not ours as a conflict. It just feels like it. And then if you're defined, you become the conflict without realizing it. The defined people don't realize that they have this energy pouring out that the other is picking up as a conflict, as an actual conflict rather than a talking point. And suddenly we start to build up a resistance to it. And it can move so quickly because the rule of open centers is they amplify, they magnify, they exaggerate what's going on in the defined center that's next to them. So somebody goes down on their wave and suddenly they feel bad and we feel twice as bad. They feel a little bit conflictual, like, hey, we got to talk about this. And we feel like that we're being blamed. And and we amplify that into an energy. If I'm a manifesting generator, it turns immediately into, confronting you back, getting angry, getting up to the point of, rage and walking out. Manifesting generators fast to get like so frustrated that frustration turns into immediate anger and rage. And we can storm out, get louder, yell, we amplify it. So if you're emotional and you're mad and your partner's unemotional, they're twice as mad.
And, I've heard Ross say before that the amplification, I mean, think about what happens when you plug an electric guitar into an amp and you turn the volume up, and past a certain point, it becomes distorted.
Totally.
And there's an amplification, but that amplification can very quickly, like you're saying, turn into a complete distortion of emotions. And that's kind of where things get murky.
Yeah. They get wicked murky.
Yeah.
Yay.
Hi, Savannah.
Hi, Savannah.
Hey, sorry I'm a little bit late. Did you guys just start? You started?
Yep. We just got started. So in your body graph, just look for this center defined or this center undefined to help start this dialogue within you. If it's defined, you are on a wave. Stop disliking it. Start embracing it. And for God's sake, start to recognize it's not a problem. It's an awareness. It's an awareness that's waking up inside of us in our lifetime. We're watching this thing wake up now. And you see it all over the planet. Everyone's willing to basically cut the head off of everyone else. When I say everyone, I'm talking about, nations and all the politics and all the horrible media that's going on out there. And it trickles down into us. We think we're willing to cut the head off of the other sometimes, whatever, especially around political boundaries. I mean, there is a clear division that thinks it's either red or blue, when it's really just, it's just human. It's neither.
I think that's going with a lot of things. And the more we go on this journey and we awaken, I mean, as soon as you awaken to whatever it is, your human design, health and wellness, the food, political, you're quantum shifting something because you're actually reprogramming stuff. So it's going to affect other people around you. And if you're not bringing awareness, if it's an undefined or a defined center, like, I'm more aware now of my emotional waves, and when they come, it gives me a moment to just write it and see what's coming at the end. I observe everything that's coming up to the surface, where before when I was not aware of it, topped with my addiction, I mean, it was just a roller coaster. There was never a moment of clarity, because as soon as I got down to through one, another one would start.
Yeah, no clarity making, no sense.
There may have been moments of clarity,
Right.
but I've noticed. I love how you said that once you bring awareness to it, it kills it. It's not, for me, it doesn't kill it, but the more that I am in the moment and I am observing everything that's going on, the highs, the lows, and the middle points, I'm able to see whatever that emotional wave is about on a different level. Where before I was just going through it and I was not aware of why I was going through the emotional waves. Topped with probably most of my exes have an undefined center, because I can tell that they did magnify that.
Yeah.
It was hard for you to gain any clarity because you weren't being mindful of what you needed to be looking for in the first place.
It's true.
Does that make sense?
It does, because it's really the mindfulness of being able to witness up and down does not equal good and bad. Up and down just equals this is going to give me something that will make me more emotionally intelligent really soon.
I did have a quick question, and maybe Tressa or Savannah can answer this, and maybe Dan, you can too. Do y'all know which clairs, your psychic's gifts, are attached to the centers?
Say that again. What was the question?
Like your clairs, clairaudience, clairvoyant. Because now that I'm thinking about it, it being an emotional wave, that kind of sounds like a clear knowing, because I just know things, and I know after emotional waves. So I didn't know if there was like psychic gifts, or you can tell which clair.
Well, I would say gate 57. I would say gate 51, an open ajna. I would say actually open emotional centers, because you're able to pick up the emotions from people around you. A lot of times, and Danny, please correct me if I'm wrong. This is just what I've experienced from my own work and the things that I do. But that gate 61, that inner mystery, that inner knowing, and then gate 57, which is actually intuition, intuitive clarity in the now, especially as it goes into gate 20. But I truly believe that on every single level, all of us are psychic. We all of us have our own capacities. The depth of emotional clarity that you're able to experience with your defined emotional system is completely different than the depth of emotional clarity. I might be able to pick up other people's emotions, but you're going to have more clarity about what emotions are. You see what I'm saying? And so, but what do you think, Danny and Savannah?
I remember I read an article, and the gates that had to do with like the clairvoyant, clairaudient were all the gates attached to the mind. So that would be 64, 61, 63, if you have any of those gates. And then also gate 57 is the most intuitive out of all the gates in the chart. Gate 44, that has to do with smell. You know, some people can smell. So that's they feel like smelling a rat, right? The gate 44. And then also gate 19 down at the that one's very sensitive to like other people's energy and things like that. That's just the ones off the top of my head that I remembered.
Savannah, it's at gate 55 off of the emotional center.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Incredibly aware that the spirit is or isn't correct for their environment, for where they are in their life. Gate 55 is probably at the center of more, self-harm activity than almost anything.
Now that you say that, and I'm analyzing, because I have that gate 55, that I feel is what starts to trigger the emotional waves, because I sit there, and because I'm a 5-1, I start investigating, why the hell do I feel like this, and what am I picking up?
That makes sense, Jennifer.
So it puts me into overdrive. Yep. Because I'm trying to analyze, I'm putting my feelers out of what is it that I am picking up, that my body, when I pick that stuff up, it's my body that's responding to it. So my mind tries to make sense of it, because I don't know exactly where it's coming from. So then I can actually feel my shields come up, because it helps me kind of analyze. But because I'm the investigator, I go above and beyond of trying to investigate what it is. Like you've heard me say it, where does the puzzle piece fit in?
Right.
Where
Where does that puzzle piece fit in? One of the big puzzle pieces for me is the fact that so I say that call the gods crazy, but they chose to split us up 50-50. I realize in the book it's 51-49, but that's not really a difference. It's 50-50. 50% have it, 50% don't. Clearly, this center was meant to be shared amongst the open and the defined. This new awareness was meant to be shared and then reflected back by the open, shared by the defined and reflected back by the open, and on and on and on, and then understood by the open, and the open become really wise on all the ways in which the defined can share, because the defined only have a narrow definition, that one way. And so there's many ways to define that solar plex center. And the open people end up with the wisdom of all the ways in which that emotional wave can actually move through us. And we start to become wise in all of that. And that wisdom helps the emotional people, helps hold space for the emotional people to take time in their clarity making over time. They need that. And we need that, because those of us who are open, if we don't take the time and don't allow for the time, then we're stuck in the same treadmill, in the same wave. We're stuck in something that isn't us, making decisions based on it. Pulls us totally away from our nature, and suddenly we're making poor decisions, which for most people isn't all that sudden. Most people, including all of us and plenty of times, have not made the best decisions as it relates to not moving quickly when it was called for. If you're not emotional, your tendency is, I want to move quick. I want to move quick. If you are emotional, your tendency is, I want to move quick. I want to move quick, and so we're still, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, you go down. I thought it was interesting in the book how I was reading, I have this book on the centers, but it was talking about how like when they're at a really high, like you're feeling this bliss, this happiness, it's almost like you have these rose kind of glasses on that like help make your perception of something. But then when you're in the low of the low, like you also have a filter. Like in the book, it gave the example of like you could meet someone, and if you're in the high of your wave, you're like, oh my gosh, I love that person. Like they are so sweet and beautiful. But if you're like in the low in your wave and you meet that same person, you'd be like, like she did this and annoyed me and so it just showed how it's kind of like filtered, like the emotional wave can filter the experience.
Correct. Neither filter is the answer. It's the blend. It's the blend and the time that gives the clarity that shows the blend.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. A good blend of awareness on the emotional solar plex center is like a fine blended Scotch whiskey, or pick another example. It's a right blend. It's the right blend of air and fuel for the motor to go fast. It's the right blend of whatever.
And then it was also saying in the book, like that emotional solar plexus, it's the stomach, it's the the gut that's kind of telling, and it's also the nervous system, like that's the part of the body. And so it was saying in the book, sometimes people who have a defined emotional solar plexus, they will stop trusting their emotions because it's so kind of up and down. And so they start to just going into the mind and trying to have the mind make the decisions and not listening to those emotions that are coming up. And it said they can actually start to have stomach problems and digestion problems because they're not tuning into that body awareness. And so they said sometimes that's what they can run into. I don't know. Have you read anything on that, Dan, or experienced that, Jen, or noticed that?
Well, yeah, you said it perfectly. I mean, that basically describes it. Same thing with the open. Same thing with the open center. It's the nervousness that comes on right away because someone else put their wave in us. I grew up in an emotional family. Almost everyone in my family but me was defined. And I remember being scared to death of just the simplest getting in trouble. So I turned into a masterful liar, No, I didn't deny that wasn't me. No. And it was harmless. whatever it was, 9 out of 10 times it was harmless, but
Yeah.
there was
I
just
think that's the hard part of having an open center is sometimes like other people's emotional waves can just feel so intense and so overwhelming that it's just like, oh, get me out of here. Like that, I mean, not to say that I don't have emotions, but like my husband has his emotional solar plexus filled in and like 3 of my children do. So yeah, I'm like bathing in everyone's emotional wave, and it does like it gets like really intense and like really emotional. And then it mentioned in the book like the not self of having the open center is you just want peace in a sense. Like you'll just kind of do anything and everything to kind of like stop the emotional wave from happening in people. And so sometimes just like sitting with people's emotional waves, I feel like is something that I've had to learn to do, is to sit when it's uncomfortable, but just holding space. I would probably say that's been really hard, and running from that conflict.
it's really easy to do.
You know what's so interesting about all of this? And I'm in my schooling program. I'm listening to a lot of Ra Uruhu lectures, and he's so big on passenger consciousness. And when you allow yourself to sit, and Danny, of course, Danny is really been my mentor on this whole thing, but when you allow yourself to sit with that chemistry, it's a chemical. This is a body. This is the chemical. We're in a meat suit with these emotional waves, whether they're ours or we're seeping in somebody else's emotional waves. When we're able to sit in the body, we become the passenger, and we're able to gain consciousness of the body as the passenger. When we think about the emotion, when we try to say, what is this emotion? I need to figure it out. I have to do something about it. I have to act. That's when the mind becomes the driver. And the mind was always meant to be the passenger. Our consciousness was always designed to be the passenger. And these beautiful bodies were always designed to have this natural type of chemistry that flows through this emotional wave, whether it's ours or whether it's somebody else's. And so all kind of going back around to the fact that the mind treats the body like a slave. And the mind is really designed, just like Savannah says, just like, Danny has said to me a million times, sit with it. Hold space for those emotions, like become the passenger, witness it, become the witness of it all.
It's so true. And as you witness it, if you really think about it, you get to ask a question: who's watching? It's a way to recognize that there's 2 of you. Just like there's 2 governments currently, LOL, there's 2 of you, of everyone. There's 2 of us. Our body delivers us the chemistry that gives us our truth. We have to keep seeing it. But each time we see it, it's like, wait a second, but that was my body. Who's seeing it? Whoever's seeing it seems to put words to it. They have a catalog for it. They spill it out to the other person the next morning when they talk about it. There's 2 of us. This passenger that can speak and is aware, but it needs to get the rest of the way aware that the body delivers us our truth. And this very easily leads us to what the real topic of this conversation is. And from my point of view is, let's explain the turmoil in this world surrounding the open versus the defined. Let's go into some of the turmoil in this world of ours, this speedy world of ours, racing out of control in so many ways. We're all expected to do more and more, right? Mind is so out there. It's like, no, figure this out. Know this. Buy Bitcoin. Don't buy Bitcoin. Buy gold. Shop more. Stock up. Don't stock up. Take this job. Don't take that job. All this stuff. It's like an old Star Trek episode. I love you, but I love you more. And it's like, what? Well, how do you know? It's always fast to make decisions, and these decisions aren't ours on either side. It doesn't matter that we're designed. Myself, I am designed. Actually, the 3 of us, besides you, Jen, we're all designed to we all have authority that gives us decision making in the now, skipping across the surface, not going very deep yet. We have to experience it. Doesn't mean we don't become deep. It just means skipping across the surface, not the depth of it all. And we're designed to make decisions quickly. I know you've seen it in me, Jen. I'll just suddenly do something. Whatever, it's always fast. But in reality, in communion in the world, I'm not designed to move super fast. my vehicle is designed to give me my truth very quickly. But that truth, as I wake up more, very often is to wait. To wait. No, I got a hammer, so everything I see is a nail now, and I want to hammer all the nails. That's the child's version. The adult version that wakes up to it says, yeah, I got a hammer, and I'm going to wait to see which nails I need to batten down and put in place.
Right.
It's
Forethought
waiting.
on how you're going to do it and build it out compared to
Right.
just start hammering away.
Right.
I have a question. So when a undefined is impacted by an emotional wave from a defined person, do y'all still have to wait until to make decisions for whatever y'all are amplifying?
Yes. For me, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. When we get hit with an emotional wave, and I've really been practicing being the passenger, my physical body, my nervous system is wrecked. This is beyond my control. I have, no matter what I try to do, I cannot control it. When somebody comes to me with their emotional wave, my body starts to shake. I go into fight or flight. My nervous system shuts down. And recognizing that my body is in fight or flight really helps me understand that, like, I don't have access to my spleen in this moment. They're defining my emotional system. I really do need to just like let this feeling. It's like we all get taken over by some sort of like spell, like emotional spell, and all of us are blinded by emotions. And
yes,
no, Jen,
Yeah.
like
I
you have to wait too.
wonder.
Oh, sorry.
Real quick, Savannah, now that you say that, I wonder what, like a breathing exercise that may help y'all. Because I'm trying to find solutions, like even for my emotional wave.
I found one.
What?
Every person that, whether they're emotional or not, just to get in touch with their strategy and authority, but as it relates to the emotion, it works great. It's your hand on your heart purposely and one conscious breath. I mean, many of us are designed to make decisions quickly. So we're not going to have the patience for much more than that. One intentional breath with your hand on your heart. One.
Well, the reason I said that is because I know there's a breathing exercise out there that and I have yet to master it, but Tressa, I understand what response you're having, because when you do this breathing exercise, your body does have that response, and that means that you still have stored trauma in your etheric field.
Nope, absolutely not. This is a natural physiological response to somebody else's emotional chemistry hitting me in the now. But I do hear what you're saying, because sometimes there is suppressed emotions and there is stored trauma. And the way that I know it for myself personally is, am I emotionally triggered? Now, there's a difference between my body going into fight or flight from somebody else's emotional response and me having an emotional trigger because of their emotional response. And this is the part about human design that I love so much, that it's really taught me. It's okay for my nervous system to have a reaction to their emotional wave. That's normal. That's how I was designed. There is nothing in this entire world that could stop me reacting to their emotional wave, because I'm open in my emotional. It is not a problem that needs to be fixed. It is an awareness that needs to be accepted. And the more that I accept that and understand that about myself, the more I can forgive my nervous system from having a natural response to somebody's emotional wave. And I realize I can sit in this emotion. This isn't so bad. This is how I was designed. I'm designed to hold space. I'm designed to allow my nervous system to go into fight or flight for a couple of minutes tops. If I'm in fight or flight for longer, if I'm holding on to that, if I walk away from that interaction and I'm really bothered by it and I can't stop thinking about things that don't matter, that's how I know I have shit inside of me that is deeply suppressed that I need to solve on my own. But there will always be a natural physiological response when somebody.
That's absolutely correct, Tressa. There's, as soon as that emotional center is defined, the trigger, this word I guess needs to take two meanings, because there's a trigger of stimuli in the now, and then there's triggers of past stuff suppressed in general, whatever, wounds, victims, all these things. And so, but they are not the same, and one does not mandate the other. period. One does not mandate that the other is also true. I can be triggered in the moment emotionally simply because it went into me and I wasn't thinking about it. I could be skipping along happy-go-lucky trying to play my piano, and then an emotional wave takes me away, and suddenly I'm frustrated, and now I'm immediately getting like a little bit pissed, and that's when I have to slow down before I make a decision based on that. Because at that moment, it's true, we are emotional. As soon as an emotional being comes in, see, it doesn't work the other way, which is why we have to deal with this so much. It does. A non-emotional being can't come into an emotional being's aura and suddenly make them non-emotional. That's a one-way street. If two beings are together and one of them's emotional, you're both emotional. One has learned to live with it because it's in their DNA and in their chemistry. One keeps getting surprised by it because every person's emotional wave is different. They're all different. And so think of the chaos that this provides us. It provides us incredible chaos, and it provides us the ability to have incredible learning. So I don't know how much is trigger and how much isn't trigger for any one person. I imagine some people incredibly a lot of past suppressed stuff, just things that whatever keep them rolling along on the things that don't matter. That's a killer all by itself.
Yeah, my main point for saying that was I was trying to come up with solutions, and breathing seems to be a really good one for in those moments, whether it be an undefined or a defined, whether it's their emotions or not their emotions. If you have a tool to help you get through whatever you're going through in the moment, I think that it would help people, giving them solutions to doing it. For me, breathing does help, being mindful. When these things start to happen or my emotional waves come up, I have to drop back down to center and be that passenger to observe what's going on. When I'm observing, it's not as so high or so low. I can have that balance where it's like just a wave, not like a hurricane. You know, if you're not aware, I feel like it's more of a hurricane. It can get to that way, but the point that I was trying to get with the breathing was that it could be a useful tool. I don't know.
It is a useful tool, Jen. There's no question about it. Because
that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, one intentional breath, and people who know a lot about breath work have all kinds of stuff. I just figured this out for myself. In that moment that it's one intentional breath, my moment is now so present that I can't be anything but a passenger.
That's all you are is your breath. That's one of my favorite affirmations is I am my breath.
Yeah. And now that's really interesting too, because it's like I've come across reading charts for people who are emotionally defined, but every gate in their emotional system is in the unconscious. It's in their design. So they don't even know that they're emotional when they're emotional. And so going back to the nervous system and recognizing that their nervous system is out of whack and bringing it back to the breath is so helpful. 100%. I also just am trying to point out the fact that, you know, what's the difference between what is a problem and what isn't a problem? What needs a solution and what doesn't? What needs acknowledgement and recognition? And what's okay to be okay, right? But I do 100% agree with you. Mindfulness exercises like the breath, but also bringing yourself back into the present moment, feeling the chair underneath you, smelling the smells in the room, hearing the sounds, like anything that brings you, just like you said, Jen, back to center. Absolutely. I totally agree with you.
My ex-girlfriend gave me a really good trick. I use it all the time. I mean, it shows up. Scrunch your toes.
Yeah, you're bringing your awareness back into the body.
Back into the body.
Because the mind wants to go into the past and the mind wants to go into the future. The mind wants to go everywhere but here, because the only thing that can exist here and now is the body. Right. That's passenger consciousness. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And Jennifer, that's a tall ask. So what you said before is recognizing that, you know, that, hey, it's a wave. It doesn't have to be a hurricane. And I have to take this time to like slow down and do something intentional and bring myself present so I can become the passenger again. You put all that, bundle all that stuff up into a neat little paragraph, and that paragraph becomes a really tall ask for the rest of humanity. And yet here we are determined to get that info out so we can ask them to make that ask of themselves.
Well, that's why I like to give people simple tools like Ho'oponopono, making Ho'oponopono water, meditating. It's these simple things, even mantras that help. And there's so many different amazing tools, and through human design we are realizing that we are all different in our own unique and special ways in these moments, because everyone's going through a deconditioning process. We are all learning new ways. No one's really experienced this on our planet, having different things that can help. Not, I don't want to say, trust, not like take it away or if it's a problem or anything like that, but it's for me, it has helped me learn how to recognize, be mindful in the moment, and switch directions. I'm not perfect at it, but it takes practice. I know sometimes it is a tall order, the stuff that I do, but I really started with being mindful because I'm a recovering alcoholic. I took the one day at a time seriously. I had to be one moment at a time, and mantras. And that's where my journey really took off. But it's helped me shift. And also, now that I know my human design, I can recognize my emotional waves, that when they start to come on, that's my period. It's like I'm a turtle. I have to like step back and just observe what's going on. But I love how you said, because through my experience, the more that I am witnessing it or bringing attention, I'm noticing that it's a storm on the lake instead of me being out in the ocean in the middle of a Category 5 hurricane.
Hey, Tressa and Savannah, have you noticed that the vocal quality of the emotionally defined voice is different than the vocal quality of the rest of our three voices? I keep noticing it. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
I don't think I'm as like in tune as you, Chad. I know you said you've noticed between open throat and closed throat. I haven't been in the experiment long enough to notice the difference. But I don't. How about you, Tressa?
I notice it when there's shifts in emotions, because the quality of the voice, the sound, the timbre, the pauses, the tone will shift when there's, and it's just another clue of, and again, it's a chemistry, right? And so when there is a type of emotional shift that can happen in the moment, we can go from one emotion to the next emotion in that wave. Yeah, absolutely. You know, whether it's via remote or if it's in real life. I really love how Jen brought up the fact of, it's like, well, what is a problem and what isn't a problem? I just had a hypnotherapy session with a man who's been in his experiment for basically his whole life. And he is an emotionally defined man. And we have been healing unconscious wounds through hypnotherapy, deep suppressed emotions that your conscious mind isn't always aware of. And we were just talking about how those unconscious wounds can trigger emotional waves without you even being aware of it. And they can go back to childhood trauma. They can go back to suppressed emotions that you didn't even know you had. And when you start to heal yourself at an unconscious level, those emotional waves, you realize that your water is actually a lot clearer than you thought it was. And the storm doesn't get triggered as often or as intense. And so again, with what Jen said, I mean, there's all sorts of tools out there that you can use, recognizing when you're triggered and what is a problem and what isn't a problem. That's a personal, unique something for you to explore, but it's definitely worth the way that it changes the waters in your wave.
Your triggers are your greatest life's teachers.
Mm-hmm.
No one will be able to teach you anything about this life that you have living right now except for your triggers. And it takes a lot of work. That's when I dove into a lot of different things, but when I started to recognize my triggers and dig deep and why am I acting like this? Why am I upset? You'll get eventually to a point where you start to uncover those things. So,
well, when you heal a trigger, it goes away.
Right, it does.
You
can look back at it and it won't have that emotional charge that it did at the very beginning. So,
and when that trigger goes away, that emotional wave is able to, right? And again, I don't have a defined emotional system. I'm kind of running off from what other clients and what other,
I can testify to that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. You have an emotional husband, Savannah.
Oh yeah. So that question you asked, like if you're in a relationship with someone who has like an emotional authority, like if we're making decisions together, we definitely have to wait till he's gone through the wave, and we have to be patient. And because I'm meant to be spontaneous, but it's almost like I have to kind of cater to his emotional authority. And then also you mentioned methods to kind of help process or release the emotional energy that open solar plexus people can do. I've heard even just getting out of their auras, right? Like going out for a walk, going out in nature. That's one way to like help it kind of release from you and know what's theirs and know what's yours. I've also heard exercising, like exercising by yourself is one way to release the energy from the solar plexus. And breath work, right? Like I'm a Kundalini yoga teacher, and they do a ton of breath work meditations in there. So there's like alternate nostril breathing. There's what else is there? There's breath of fire. There's so many ways to like these breathing patterns to kind of tap into the nervous system and get it to release that tension that the body's holding. So I've noticed, there's been times where I've been doing breath work and I'll just start sobbing, and I'm like, I'm not thinking of anything sad. Like, where is this coming from? Right. So for me, breath work has been really powerful of way to kind of release other people's stuff and even my own. So breath work is really, really powerful. I'm trying to think what else I was going to say, but people who have an open emotional center, like our nervous systems are more sensitive.
We're jacked up. We are jacked up, and we're ready to be jacked up. That's what I've seen.
So it's almost like we have to kind of do certain things to kind of support our nervous system that is more tender, you could say. And so, and of course, like it's everyone's experiment. They need to find what works for them, right? Like for me, that's breath work. For some people, that's going and running for an hour, or some people it's lifting weights, So it really is an experiment, and to see what your body responds best to. So
Savannah, can I ask you a question on that?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the line? And this is something, Danny, please chime in too. But Savannah, where's the line between removing ourselves from their emotional wave and avoiding confrontation and truth?
That's right. Yes, because that's the not self theme of an open emotional solar plexus.
I'll tell you where the line is, unless you want to take a stab at it, Savannah.
You go first, Dan. You go first.
The line is with the amount of awareness you have to it. With the right awareness, you can be like, I'm walking out to the garage, and maybe you won't even do anything in the garage. You don't have to lift weights or do anything. You just got out so that you can, like a runner waiting at the starting line for the guy to shoot the gun, brace yourself and then go back in, because it's not resolved yet, whatever was going on in the moment. That's what that person can do, but it won't do them any good if their partner, let's use examples of partners because that's where it's most common. If their partner, husband, wife, whatever, is not also in the same form of level of an experiment watching it. So they can be like, I know I was down. I sent you outside, didn't I? And the other guy can laugh and be like, yeah, I went outside. But I'm back. I'm ready. I'm doing a thing. And right, all of this, that's an awake conversation. But our world isn't having this type of an awake conversation. That's the line. It's a moving line, Savannah, but that's essentially the line. It's I'm aware of it or I'm not. If we're not aware of it, that's cannon fire. That's fire and hell and brimstone. And that's I'll rain hellfire down on you, or vice versa. And that's what it turns into.
Yeah, awareness is key. And that's essentially awareness is consciousness. Right? The more awareness you have, the more consciousness you have, and the more you're able to handle things better. And for my husband, he's emotionally defined, and now that he's aware of his emotional wave, he used to make fun of himself in the past. He's like, I'm having a man period. That's what he would call it, was a man period.
I love that.
And so once we found human design, we're like, hey, that's what that is,
Right.
But and not to make light of it or make fun. He would just say that to kind of make fun of himself. But he's able to move through his emotional wave. He's he says it now. He's like, I can feel it coming, you know, like I'm starting to feel like this. And no matter how much he tries to stop it, it can't be stopped, you know? And so, but now like he just kind of sits back and has awareness of it. It does. It passes like so much more quicker and smoother. And he gains more awareness through that emotional wave. And so like I can see for my husband, like human design has been like a game changer, like understanding how his is defined and mine isn't.
It
And
changes
so,
relationships. It
oh,
fixes
it does.
relationships.
Yes, it is seriously like the best marriage counseling therapy. And it really has like changed our relationship so much for the better. But, yeah, because you wait, Tressa, your husband, he's not emotional, right? In his
No,
chart.
but we're a 9 and 0. We define each other's emotional system. So, I mean, that's a thing, you know, that's a thing as well. Like we all get to be aware of when our household is emotional and when it's not. And we're both splenic authorities, but when we are in an emotional wave as a relationship, the emotional wave wins. And that's the thing. Danny has said this to me so many times. It's like the emotional wave rules the world. No matter if you're emotional or not, the wave wins, hands down.
It does rule the world because our world is meant to wake up emotionally. Can you move to the next slide, Jen?
Yes. This one?
Let's see. Emotional Solar-Plexus. This has got the names on it. Was there one more slide?
I added this one.
Fear of, nervousness over. Yes, because we all experience these fears and these nervousnesses. So, and we'll go back to the other slide, unless you guys want to talk on the other slide first, but this slide here really says so much. On the left-hand side. So our emotional awareness that's waking up in this world today, what it's really telling us is it's telling us we all got to wake up to this thing because A, it'll give us the clarity we need. B, it'll slow everything down. We need to slow down. We're racing forward. We need to slow down. And it will create the kinds of bonds that are meant to happen. And it'll put kids into relationships of the right parents. You know, they say we choose our parents when we come in. I have mixed feelings about that actual choice. To me, some of it's random. It's a subject for another time, but random or chosen, you know, let's have the right choices being made. Because right now in the emotional world, if they're choosing who their parents are, they're making a fast emotional decision that's meant to go slow. So, you know, we are moving too fast. And look at what it says: feelings, moods, support, intimacy. Intimacy is a slow boil. It's not supposed to always be lickety split. You know, the promises of gate 37 that it helps empower through the ego, the vulnerability of gate 22, which is really the openness to listen. And hi, I'm open to listening. Well, you might hear something that makes you feel very vulnerable. You know, yet there it is. It's genetically imposed upon us to vulnerably be open to listening. And suddenly some people be like, no, if I shut down, then my heart won't be broken. No, if you shut down, your heart will be closed and it won't be broken or open. It'll go dormant. And that's not what you want. Same with expectations. We're supposed to expect stuff. Our feelings make us have expectations. It's wicked important. But when you move over into the fear of, and it's more than just these fears, there's melancholies that come out of it, and just the wave in general, you start to see where we need to become competent in this awareness. That's what it is. And this is where our passenger comes in. Hey, I like this experiment. Let's become competent in this awareness. This is interesting. That's what we need our passenger to do, to witness that it's part of a binary, a duality, a dual consciousness. And Jennifer, I would like to ask you, have you noticed that when people like avoid you, have you noticed that it feels like crap?
Yeah.
What happens? What happens to you when you are avoided? Because you're the
What
other
happens
story.
to me?
Yeah. Before, never mind after, but before, in the past.
Before?
Or even
like,
now, whatever.
Well, my first response is to shut down.
Is that healthy?
No, because over time, then, especially like in past relationships, when that started to happen, I lost my voice because I got to the point where it didn't matter what I said because I was not being heard, seen, appreciated, or anything like that.
A manifestor that lost their voice is a slow death.
hmm Well, yes, because even on my journey now, I have had to learn how to find it. That at the beginning of my journey, I had to learn at what I what was me and what was somebody else's. Because I wasn't heard, it was always what my boyfriend at the time wanted or what my ex wanted. We were going to eat there. We were going to, it was never what I wanted, even if I was asked. It was like, okay, we're going to do something else. So, mhm.
I've noticed with my husband, like, because I feel bad, but I'm like, I just feel overwhelmed. Like sometimes if he's in a low and he's melancholy or he's irritable or whatever, like, sometimes it's overwhelming for me. And then he can pick up on that. And so then he feels bad. Like
That's
he's hurting, like he's
good.
making me feel uncomfortable. So then he feels bad, so sometimes it is hard because I mean, I've kind of learned to sit with it now, but in the past, it's like, yeah, I just give me space, but then that can hurt them because then they feel like they're overwhelming you or making you feel uncomfortable. And so it is this kind of hard balance. Like you have to
And
kind of learn of each other. What was that?
We're asking the world to strike this balance so that we can really start to see it, because to avoid the confrontation is also to lean in and double down on that confrontation. It's one or the other. I mean, it can be one or the other. It's so common. And so in that avoidance, we really start to lie to ourselves, and then we become afraid. Us open emotional people, we live with the fear of this center. It shows
And the
up,
nervousness because
it shows up in insidious ways, and we lose track of it. And we can't get a grip on it anymore, and it runs away with us. And that's not how it's supposed to be.
I just want to point out how cool it was to hear Jen talk about her own personal experience and to recognize that her emotional system is defined by 2212. And so recognizing that there's going to be that theme of not being able to speak, not being heard, right? Gate 12 is all about articulation. Gate 22 has this, lack of being heard. And then again, with Savannah, your husband and his 5539, how that goes down to like spirit and hurting people. And just recognizing what gates you have in your emotional system and how those themes really, really express themselves. I just thought that was really cool, and I needed to point it out.
It is cool. And Savannah,
because your gates and channels attached to the emotion center are what can trigger the emotional wave in people sometimes. So yeah, I loved how you pointed that out.
Yep. And Savannah, you've got an interesting solar-plex center. You've got all but one available to be defined by another or by a transit, as I recall.
Yes. Even though my emotional solar plexus is open, I have like a ton attached to it and then a ton pointing at it. So seriously, whenever I check the transits, it is usually always lit up. So I feel like I kind of experience a little bit of both worlds, right?
Well,
like
this awareness that you just described that it gave you regarding Jake, regarding your husband. Think of the awareness. Do you know how long it would take most couples to even come to that point in time? So this is, now that we've looked at it, it has served you. It has served you.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. Big time. And like, sometimes it makes me sad because I'm like, dude, every couple needs this. And that's why I'm always telling people, like, you need to get a couples reading, like with Dan, because he can explain what it's like for each of you. And then it helps you understand each other. And because now it's like, whenever my husband goes through a wave, I'm like, okay, this is going to pass. It's like his man period, right? Like it's going to pass. It's not going to be here for forever. Just sit with him, talk with him through it, or, find those things that help him move through it a little bit quicker. Like for him, sometimes it's just going to the store and like shopping or window shopping, like just like weird little things like that. He was telling me, he's like, yeah, like pick my mood back up by going to the store. So it really is just this like experiment and having awareness, and it makes all the difference. It really does.
If you go back to the center slide, Jen, we can probably try and wrap this up with what is it that is actually, let's just go full screen unless someone wants to read on these things, because I'd rather just go full screen.
No, we can go full screen. Oh, did you want to read it, Savannah?
Oh, which one? Oh, which one? The solar plexus one?
I don't, unless one of you guys wants to read something on here.
Well, consistent way of processing emotional energy, wait and sleep on big decisions, passionate and deeply feeling person, periods of despair, pain, melancholy, and others of hope, bliss, and happiness, unavoidable cyclical change in mood. Your mood colors your perspective without realizing it. Why there is no truth in the now. Immediate decisions will always be colored by the wave and lead to distorted assessment. Is that the one you want me to read?
I was just wondering if there's something you wanted to read out of there, actually. But
Oh, sorry, I just started reading it. You're like, what are you doing?
No, it's perfect. Actually, that you read them all off. Let's go full screen, because the end of all of this is, how is our world going to get along? Where do we see this playing out on a macro picture? Anyone want to take a stab at that?
You know, something really came up as we were talking about Savannah's open emotional center and all of those hanging gates off of it and pointing to it. And it's something that Danny has explained to me, and something I've heard in my lectures, is the fact that Savannah needs other people to teach her what her emotions are. She doesn't have access to those alone. Right? So when you have any gates in your emotional center and you have an undefined emotional center, that is an expression of you that you don't have access to. And when somebody defines your emotional system, it helps you understand an aspect of you that you didn't know was there. Now, when you have a completely open emotional system, you're more prone to conditioning, but you're also more prone to be able to just sit in whatever gates are in your field. And Danny, I would just love to hear you expand on that and help us understand how that relates to what you just said about this entire emotional field. How are we teaching each other through emotion?
How are we teaching each other? The only thing I keep coming up with is, we have this world that keeps pointing its finger and it's moving too fast. I keep coming up to the same thing. It's too much haste in decision making. And this Solar-Plex center has been landed upon us to slow things down. I mean, I understand why we moved fast in the first 100,000 years. We were trying to get to ships that would cross an ocean. That was pretty cool. But we did that. Time to slow down, truly slow down, so that the right babies are made in the right unions, so that the right, cause and effects are attributed to the right factors and not to people, but to the moods and the factors that are going on, so that the right mood of the planet and the people in it, and one country against another. My God is better than your God. Can you imagine the emotional explosiveness just in that statement alone? My God is better than your God. That's a thing. That's a thing. And it's emotionally charged now. Now it's emotionally charged, and only standing back can we start to realize, open, defined, or a few hanging gates, it's all of it. It's mixed up in this soup of, we all have to get along, so that the open stop avoiding stuff, and so that the defined stop finding fault in the other for avoiding stuff, and then you can all come to this clarity, truth process that we're all in anyways. Nobody's outside of it. It's in the world. Tressa, you and I are emotional most of the time regardless, because someone is near us, there is a transit, or like you have a baby that's forget it. It's over. Mm-hmm. You and your husband define it emotionally. So all night long, you're it, or whatever. Even in your sleep, you're it. So we don't want to avoid it. And in the term, there's no avoiding it. Sounds like avoiding it would have been an option. It's not. We don't want to avoid it. The clarity on the other side of this emotional wave brings us everything, including peace and joy. And all of life shall come to us with ease and joy and glory. That's my mantra for today.
Amen.
Amen.
Love it. Amen.
Beautiful.
Sunday sermon.
Germany. We need the Church of Human Design. We have a book. We have people that can talk. We just need a place.
Raw would call you schmaltzy right now.
Okay.
I'm getting a little bit schmaltzy. I think I need to go.
Yeah. Schmaltz does. Yeah.
Well, we'll work on that. Maybe we'll incorporate something eventually. So thank you, everybody who tuned in today. We truly appreciate it. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, and follow the show. And tune in on Wednesday night. I don't think we have a person just yet, but stay tuned. I'm pretty sure something will happen and pop up of somebody that we can do. And yeah, until next time, we will talk to you guys later.
Take it easy, love.
Bye.
Bye.